Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Archlector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone, and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. On this episode, we review Preparation, Rules of War, and One Nation. So, let's get started. As usual, you know we must thank you, the populace, the audience, the people, for your continued support. The world's population may be protesting one thing or another, but they're not protesting us, are they now? So,
not yet.
That's not an invitation. That's not an invitation for anyone to start a protest. If that's the case,
they will if I have anything to do with it.
George, you're the one in charge of putting down rebellions. So,
yeah, that's it. Or am I secretly trying to start a rebellion?
What are you, the fucking Tanner now? Well, we got to thank you for your support. You know, we've added a couple people to the Discord. If you're interested in it, please ask us. We shall send you an invite as long as you behave yourself. Yeah, other than that, you know, tune into our social medias, our YouTube page, whatnot. Oh, I want to bring up something that I would like the populace to actually chime in on. We will be recording something with one of our frequent guests, B9er, Bloody Niner.
Hell yeah.
And we will be talking about, I don't know what the trilogy is called, like the nominal, whatever.
It's called Shattered Sea.
That's right, the Shattered
Sea.
Sea.
Nice job, Jeffrey. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Whatever. We're gonna be talking about the Shattered Sea trilogy. That's gonna be recorded in a week or two. Just want to know, would you guys like that to be on the regular podcast page, or do you want to keep it exclusively to the YouTube page? Boys, what are your thoughts? And obviously, we'll wait for the populace's thoughts.
I mean, if we're going to go through the effort of making it as a special episode, as we usually do when it comes to the end of a book anyway, I don't see anything wrong with keeping it on the main channel because,
okay,
I mean, it's still Joe Abercrombie, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, cool. Let's do a special episode covering, that stuff. Well, I'm sure that whenever The Devils comes out, we will be doing a special episode on that as well. So, It's just part of it.
Exactly.
Really, this is the Joe Abercrombie podcast, and we all know it.
True. Very true. Very true. All right. Cool. Well, yeah, people, if you have like differing thoughts, I guess let us know. I mean, I don't know how much stock the Archlector is going to take into consideration your opinions, but we'll, we say that we like to hear your thoughts, so I guess we mean it, right?
Yes.
All right.
We like to hear them. It's no promise that we're going to take them into consideration, though.
That's it. Okay. So, moving on, we shall start off this episode with our first chapter read-through, which is Preparation. And this is from the perspective of our homie, Castor Morveer. And he has been, let's suffice it to say, he's been struggling, right? 3 weeks since...
And no sales. He's working a commission job, and he hasn't sold shit.
He hasn't closed anything. So it's been 3 weeks since that whole shebang where he... where Monza got crowned as the new Duchess of Talons. And all he has to show for it is that one dead commoner, potentially another one, and a sore back. And he is tight because he's having, like I said, no success with Duke Orso's immensely ambitious commission to murder no fewer than 6 heads of state and a captain general. And there have been several mishaps since then. So our boy was able to gain entry into a dressmaker shop, and he knew that the Countess Cotarda of Afoya was had commissioned a green dress, right? And so he had put poison all over that dress.
But he forgot to. He didn't see that it may be a little bit larger than the target that he was going for.
If only Day was there to tell him what a woman's body was like, because he's never experienced it. So
right, yeah, I do like how he made made it a point to mention that if Day had been there, she would have pointed out that the garment that he had poisoned was twice as large for their victim. So the Countess had emerged resplendent at a party, her gown a sensation with the folks. And then it wasn't until later afterwards that Morveer had discovered that it was the exceedingly large wife of one of Talon's leading merchants who had commissioned the same dress, but she couldn't attend the party because she was struck by a mysterious illness from which she had died within hours later. So, yeah,
I know this kind of played like a joke, but this makes me really sad. This poor lady. It's just like that's not
some random woman. Yeah,
right.
So
and then
sad.
and then 5 nights later, when he spent an entire afternoon hiding inside a heap of coal and breathing through a tube. He was successful in loading Duke Larosio's oysters with spider venom. But if Day had been there with them, she might have suggested they go for a more basic, common food item. But Morveer couldn't resist the more noteworthy dish. So alas, the Duke, after eating a lot of bread and cheese and shit, he felt kind of queasy and passed on the oysters. So then they gave the oysters to the cat, which now the cat died. Which sucked.
That part's sad. That's really sad.
It is really sad. And then then the following week, he once again took on the alias of Rotsack Revrom, and he was able to gain himself a meeting with Chancellor Sartorius and some aides to discuss trade levies, right?
Oh,
and then during the meal, somehow he was able to slightly deftly brushed the top of Sartorius's ear with a solution of leopard flower. And so he sat back for the rest of the meeting like, oh, this is going to be great. Then turns out that the motherfucker was still alive, and he figured out that Sartorius must have done his own like morning routine of antidotes and immunizing agents, right, to various poisons. So now that shit went up in flames as well. So Morveer is not a man to be put off by a few setbacks, though. He suffered many in life, and he saw no reason to alter his formula of commendable stoicism.
The most whiny, complaining person on the planet thinks he's a stoic. Of course he does.
That's hilarious. So he's decided to focus his efforts upon the important targets, Rogant and Mercado, right? And so he had gained entry into the building where they're going to be crowning Rogant, in the Senate House. He infiltrated it by pretending to be a carpenter. He dressed up as a part, had a toolbox, the whole thing, right?
Yep. I also love how every single thing that he does in this little section here, where he's trying, failing to succeed. He oh, if only Day was here, she could have helped. Well, I think what they're showing is like he's used to having an assistant, and I'm not saying Morveer isn't competent, but he obviously relies on other people a lot more than he realizes, or than he would ever admit. So I like that that's here. But he's not He's not incompetent. He just he's too vain to even realize that he needs help.
Yeah. He's been unlucky.
Exactly.
He's been unlucky, and obviously, like you said, incompetent. And in these moments.
And it's so funny that each time he does something, he's like, I dress up like the common man. It's a shame. In fact, whenever he walks into this place, he's thinking about, he's pretending to be a carpenter, a workman, and he sees something that needs to be done. He wills it. He starts carpentry, and he's like, oh man, I'm so good at carpentry. Maybe I should have been a carpenter. But nay, I am a murderer.
Nay.
That's so stupid.
Oh, and I like how Morveer is offended as he's walking through this, the house. He sees all the work that they're doing. They're restoring it to its former glory and everything. The banners of all the different city-states are hung about. And he goes, for Rogant to choose to be crowned here in the ancient heart of the new empire, the arrogance was incalculable. And if there was one quality that Morveer could not abide, it was arrogance. After all, humility, costs nothing.
Jesus Christ.
So he makes his way to the back of the building, and he's walking through like a staircase, and he sees a heavy door that was stood ajar, and he wondered. He looked around and he goes, "You know what? Let me go in here. Let's see what's going on in here." So he walks into the room, and there's no lamps, there's no windows. It's the only light comes through like the corridor from the doorway, and there's some empty boxes and stuff. So it just seems like a place where it might be storage or something. And then he hears voices, two voices approaching the door. So he's like, "Fuck!" So he basically like hid himself behind a stack of crates that between the wall and crates. And then he hears people, they come in. There's two guys, they talk about like this thing that's heavy, and they go, set it here. And the guy goes, "Oh, where's the key for this thing?" So we assume it's a box, right, or some kind of lock box. And the one guy has it, tells him to leave it in the lock. And then he goes, "Look, why would we put? What's the purpose of a lock if you leave the key in it?" And the guy goes, "So to not have any obstacle. We don't want to, bring the damn case out there in front of thousands of people, and then they tell us to open it up, and then one of us forgot the key or something. We want it to be with the box." Like, okay, got it. That makes sense.
Which I love the fact that they like point that out, like as like Joe's like, "Hey, I know what you naysayers are gonna say. This is really plot convenient, isn't it?" But hey, I thought of this one.
So all right, and besides, the room's gonna be locked anyways. Like, okay, that makes sense. So then they, I guess they put down the lockbox, whatever. They left and they closed the door and they locked the door, right? And then after a few moments, Morveer realized that he's sealed shut in this room, but no big deal. So he figured that he's just gonna figure out a way to get out of there. And then, am I mistaken? Were there windows? Oh no, but there were balconies. That's what it was. Okay, so the room has balconies. So he figures he'll just like rappel down a balcony. So he had looked and he sees a large case has been placed in the center of the floor, and the case itself was a work of art. Engraved, inlaid wood, bound with bands of silver, all this stuff. And he's like, interesting. And let me just see what's in it. And so he unlocked the case, and then he opened it, and he was impressed. He couldn't, we don't know what the object is, but he was very impressed by this object. And then he had a wonderful, wonderful idea. And he only wished that Day was alive to appreciate his genius. Not his luck, but his genius. So he opened up his box, his toolbox. Apparently, it has like a hidden compartment. So he has his real tools there. So he puts on some gloves, and he gets to work with this specific poison that's in a brown glass jar. And he's very, very careful with it because apparently it's his own devising, which he called Preparation Number 12, which makes me think of Preparation H, but whatever. And he thinks he goes, there'll be no repeat of his error with Sartorius because this is a poison so deadly that not even Morveer himself could develop the slightest immunity to it, which makes me think this is the true king of poisons, right?
I mean, yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the king of poisons, I think, is never actually a king of poisons. It's all a ploy.
It's all a ploy, but I'm just saying if there was, this might be it. That's what I'm saying. So he opens it up, takes up an artist's brush, and he begins to work. And that's the end of that chapter. So, boys, what do you think of that?
I really like seeing Morveer. Yeah, as I said last episode, I love just watching him do his thing. He's so fucking incompetent, but also quite clever at the same time. I can see this as sort of like a fun little montage of him just murdering all these people and a cat, and failing to kill everyone else. But it's pretty short. I like the workman being the flawless logic of just leave it in there. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So I reckon I'll give this one just a 5. I think.
Okay. Harrison.
I think 4. I like the Morveer chapters a little bit less. Like you said, I like we're seeing all these different aspects. It's pretty funny to hear him fail and just do this cycle that he's obviously been doing his whole life, where he is so proud of himself for doing one thing, and then he just inflates it until he just floats around the room, bumping into everything else until he happens to get it right again. And it's good. It's a good representation of his actual work life, and I like seeing all like the little stuff like Chancellor Sartorius being like immune. Like, of course he is, because he's like 90 and can't die.
The guy that's the most from the most neutral city state is the one that he's smart. He's smart, right? He's gotta be.
Yeah. When in Syria,
take care of yourself. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 4 as well. I like it as much as George does. It's really, really short, you know?
Yeah, it is pretty short.
So that's the only reason where it gets a 4. I mean, I think it's hilarious. Like, you know, like you said, George, a montage of his fucking failings. Just see an overweight, like this poor old lady just die. Couldn't even go to the same party that the countess was going to. She just, honey, I can't make it. 2 hours later, dead. The fucking poor kitty was fed a delicious meal of oysters. Nope, fucking dead.
No one is saved from Morveer's wrath.
His mistargeted wrath. So, and now he had a giant stroke of luck. So we'll see what this is, right? And then that's pretty much it. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is our best meme of the week. Georgie boy, this is you. Take it away.
Bum bum bum.
So this week we have Crates of Bigfoots, who I think has had.
Yeah, he's been once or twice. Yeah,
I think we've seen once or twice. Had a meme of the week, and this week it's that Turkish pistol shooter that went and made the rounds on the internet the other day because he's not using any of the special equipment all of the other Olympians are using, and still got the silver, which is lovely. And it's him with this cat, and this is Shivers with Ricker, and then with the gun, it's like Shivers with everyone else, which is so fucking true. And I especially love that comment. It's a big guy just needed a friend. It's what he wanted the whole time. He just wanted a friend.
For you first-time readers, that's an Age of Madness reference. But
absolutely.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
So yeah, thanks for that, Crates of Bigfoot.
It was a good one. We appreciated that. So we'll move on to our next chapter read through, and this is Rules of War. And this one is from the perspective of our boy, famed soldier of fortune, Nikomo Koska, old new Captain General of the Thousand Swords. And he is creeping down a tunnel, interestingly enough. His knees and his back are aching because he's almost had to be bent double. And he is going up this tunnel, going down it, and he sees a light near the end of it, and we are figuring out that it's at the end of this tunnel is basically like a little bit of a cave, like they dug a cave, and there's a bunch of barrels, large barrels. Gurkish words are painted on the side of them. We figure out that this is the Gurkish fire, the Gurkish sugar they call. And
it's I like how it's called the Gurkish sugar. I know we talked about it before. I just think it's cool. It's like a little in-lore reference. And
with these barrels of Gurkish sugar is Cesaria. And he's sweating and he's like straining at these barrels, these kegs, I guess writing them and everything. And so Koska goes, oh, it's time. And Cesaria goes, be careful, man, where you put that lamp, because Koska has a lamp. There are a couple other lamps in this cave. A spark in the wrong place and you're blowing us all up. And he goes, sorry about that. Sorry. So they check. Cesaria asks him if everyone else is out of the tunnel, and Koska goes, yep, that's pretty much it. So then they're ready. And so, I guess basically what they're going to do is they're like sappers, right? They've dug this tunnel, and now they're going to blow this bitch up, apparently.
Hey, they're not sappers. They're sapping.
Sapping. Right. Okay. So, they Koska asks him, how big will the explosion be? And Cesaria goes, look, I've never seen even a quarter as much of powder used at one time. That, and they keep mixing it stronger. So this new stuff, he worries that it might be too big. And so,
Which is an excellent reference to the fact that they're like trying to develop this more.
Yeah.
This Gurkish sugar to be more potent.
Trying to make advances in wartime technology, right? And Koska goes, well, better a grand gesture than a disappointing one. But Cesaria goes, yeah, unless it brings the entire mountain down on everybody. So it's too late for second thoughts, according to Casca. Victus has his picked men ready for the assault. Rogant will be king tonight, and he's expecting to honor us with his majestic presence at dawn, so that he can order the final attack once they make it their way inside the fortress. And Casca, it will be damned if he's going to spend his morning listening to that fool whine at him. So,
which we know he will. He's just gonna become like the most fucking insufferable person on the planet when he becomes the king.
Yeah, for sure.
This guy's having people hanged left to right just for anything, any old reason.
Mm-hmm.
You think that me as king, me, bias, first of the Magi?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And Cesaria, I guess, makes the point where he realizes, like, this doesn't seem right. You dig a hole, you light a torch to some dust, and you run and then pop. There's no way to fight. There's no way for courage. And then Casca goes, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Basically, he goes, "Well, you just got," because Cesaria's like, "You got to think about how you feel, wouldn't you? Like, one moment you're going about your business, the next thing you're blown to bits. You don't even get to see your killer." And then, Casca, he points out that it's the same thing as not seeing who gave the orders to kill another person, right? Like, you don't know like who's the true architect of one's death. And Cesaria goes, "Yeah, maybe."
I do think it's an interesting point though, because it's sort of like it depersonalizes violence. You know what I mean? It's easier to kill someone when all you do is really press a button or pull a trigger, and something happens miles away.
Yeah, it becomes more indiscriminate, right?
I do like
exactly.
how the letters. Go ahead, finish your thought. My bad.
Oh, so when you actually have to like look someone in the eye and fucking stab them, people are a lot less likely to want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that the whole aspect of that, I think that's the point that Cesaria is trying to make, and Casca's just not getting it.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Whatever, dead is dead. I don't give a fuck. Why are we talking about this?"
Right, and then Cesaria goes, yeah, but sometimes I miss the old days, back when Sazine was in charge. It seemed like it was a more honest world. And Casca, what the fuck are you talking about? Goddamn well, there's not a dirty trick that Sazine would have used in this world. And he goes, yeah, I guess so. It just doesn't seem fair. And then Cesaria goes, no. Then Casca goes, I never realized you were an enthusiast for fair. And Cesaria goes, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but I'd rather win a fair fight than an unfair one. It leaves a better taste somehow. And then he goes, fighting by some kind of rules. And Casca goes, huh, interesting. And then just clubs him across the back of the head with his lamp.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And then Casca goes, this is war. There are no rules. And so then Casca raises the lamp and hits it against his head again, against Cesaria's head, and knocks him senseless. And then he goes, well, that's pretty much it. And he starts going back down to the tunnel.
I looked at the whole thing with him like being like, oh yeah, you should fight a man face to face. And the Casca's like, oh, okay, all right. Are you done? All right,
yeah,
okay,
cool.
Yoink.
So then he makes it back down the tunnel, and he gets far enough where he thinks he sees daylight, so he thinks he sees the entrance. So he goes, okay, this is far enough. So he goes to the trail of the Gurkish sugar that's on the ground, and he tries to light it with the lamp. Unfortunately, he had hit Cesaria so hard with it, it's not working. It's just, he can't even open it, it's not turning on, whatever. So, fuck. So now his only option...
It's really stupid of him to hit him with the lamp, isn't it? When there's fucking a trail of explosives on the floor.
Right. Seriously, so dumb. And then he's, fuck. So now he has to go back to the cave to get one of the lamps that's there. So he makes his way, going over there until he sees that Cesaria appears around the bend. He has a lamp with blood creeping down his forehead, and they kind of just face each other for a moment. And it goes, what the fuck? And Cesaria goes, why? And then Casca goes, I make a point of never letting a man betray me twice. And then Casca,
I like that Cesaria didn't even question who it was. Like, he was like, it was you. Why are you coming back over here?
He goes, I thought you were all business. And he goes, things change. So Cesaria goes, so you killed Andish. And then Cesaria's like, well, Mercado was the one that took your chair, not us. And then Casca goes, entirely different matter. Women can betray me as often as they please. And Cesaro goes, you always did have a blind spot for that mad bitch. And he goes, yeah, I'm an incurable romantic, or maybe I just never liked you. So Cesaro procures a knife. He goes, you should have just killed me back there. And then Casca goes, I'm glad I didn't. Now I get to use another clever line. And what the fuck? So Casca is not going to put away his sword, to fight knife to knife. And so then they kind of fight. In a confined space, Cesaro is such a big man that it's not hard. It's not easy. Like, Casca can't really miss him, right?
Yeah. No, you just got to stab. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets him a couple of times, in the shoulder. Cesaro makes some, like, lunges. And then Casca just runs him straight through his chest, right? And then now Casca gives him the clever last line, which is, there, do you get my point? But Cesaro lurches forward and basically locks Casca in an embrace and topples over. So Casca is now laying on his back, Cesaro on top of him. And now Cesaro goes, you call that a clever line? And then he smashes his lamp down onto the trail of powder.
Dun, dun, dun. Stick them both with him.
So now Casca's like, oh, fuck! So now Cesaro at this point is dead. And so Casca struggles with his body. He flings it, off of him, and he drags himself up, and he starts running, and he's hoping to God he can make it outside, quicker than the trail of dust can, get to the barrels. He's running as fast as he can, being doubled over. Finally, he reaches out into open air. He gets to the entrance, and he's just screaming out to nobody. He's like, run! Run! And then people are like, what the fuck's going around? And then he keeps running, and then he gets to, like, I guess, a trench. Victus is there. He goes, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he goes, take cover! And he dives, and he's like, curling himself up, and he's like, bombs away, basically. And everyone's like covering themselves. They're like squeeze, hands over their heads. Like, what the fuck? And then after some moment, nothing happens. He goes, what the fuck? Casca kind of opens his eyes, and Victus is kind of like, what the fuck is going on? He's like, what happened? Is the fuse lit? Where's Cesaro? And then Casca goes, and then he goes, oh fuck! If they enter that, if the trail of the dust, went out somehow, and so they go in there and they see Cesaro impaled with the sword. They're gonna be like, what the fuck? but then the slightest of tremors touch the earth, and next thing you know, a giant detonation, so loud that it sent pain into Casca's head. And then it was like one of those like explosions that there was like a high-pitched faint whine, and the earth shakes. Basically, it's just like a.
This is like the biggest explosion we've seen in the series. I think it may be the biggest. Guys, can we rate the explosions?
Well, there's not a lot of explosions.
I know there's not. Right? That's what I'm trying to say, though. I think that's
the closest thing was the Vortex of Doom that Baez did in Adua.
Oh yeah.
But that was the Gurkish blow a hole in the wall in Adua.
That's true. That
was a big explosion.
Yeah, those are explosions there. Yeah, the Vortex of Doom wasn't an explosion. It was more like a spiraling tornado. So
yeah,
that was a magic explosion. It's a different category.
Okay. And so everyone's coughing. There's dust everywhere. And then, for a time, everyone's just kind of quiet. And then Casca finally opens his eyes, and it's kind of like silent fog. And then they look at, over the Fontesarmo, and the wall of Fontesarmo is not damaged, apparently, which is interesting, right?
But I like this. This is the way it does happen. Like they probably dug that tunnel a good 10 feet, 15 feet under the wall. So they've destabilized, and then it collapses rather than what you'd expect, which is the whole thing just comes out and explodes out of the ground.
Right.
You'd have to have a huge amount of fucking powder to do that. That just doesn't make any sense.
Not like in the movies, kids.
Right.
Exactly. This is real.
And so apparently the explosion took place at the base of the tower, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a great crater, from the rock in front of the tower. So it's still like on the side of the invaders of the Thousand Swords. And so for a moment, it was like the greatest anti-climax, right? And then with like real like syrupy slowness, the tower leaned, buckled, and then fell in on itself, collapsed into the crater. And so then a huge section of the wall to either side of it was dragged afterwards, folding up, and it just all dissolved into rubble. And so it was just like a giant landslide. So then, for the second time, men kind of like dove for cover. And then another
suddenly, basically a rock slide coming down the fucking hill.
yeah. And then another cloud of dust. And then they all kind of like get up again. And then he sees Victus stand beside him. Victus raises his sword and screams. We figure out the word that he says is charge. And so men clambered forward. They're kind of dazed, though. Like one guy took a couple of steps and fell on his face. So soon enough, there's a few hundred men starting to scramble over there. And then Casca is left alone in the trench with Victus. And they're both covered with dust. And then Victus is like, "Where's Cesaria?" And the words are very like faint in Casca's ear, so it's like, "Where's Cesaria?" And then Casca goes, "He wasn't behind me." And then Victus goes, "No, what happened?" And he goes, an accident as we came out. And he said it wasn't hard to force out a tear because Casca was covered in bruises. He goes, "I dropped my lamp. Dropped it, set off a trail of powder halfway down. I told him to run with me, but he stayed to put it out." And Victus goes, "He stayed?" He goes, "He thought he could save us both. My fault. Oh, my fault." He truly was the best of us. Why do the fates always take the best? And Victus's eyes go down to Casca's empty scabbard and then back to the crater. And he goes, "Dead, huh?" And Casca goes, "Blown to hell. Baking with Gurkha sugar can be a dangerous business." Well,
I like how Victus is like the sly one. He's just like, he's not. He's like, okay, whatever.
Right. And then I like how Casca goes, "Victory. At least Cesaria's sacrifice was not in vain." And Victus goes, "Oh no!" And he gives him like the side eye, and he goes, "He'd have been proud." And then we end the chapter there. So, how do we rate that chapter, boys?
How do you rate that chapter, Jeffrey?
Another short one. Funny. I'll give it another 4. We're getting a lot of short chapters, and the 4 is like pretty much more the duration of the chapter, not so much the quality. Quality's there. Casca, on his quest for vengeance, apparently, as we see now, is getting it done. And the first time with Andish, it was aptly done. Although Friendly kind of made a little bit of a mess by killing that colonel of Regrat. Yeah. But then this time it was like, oops, shit went wrong. So it's funny how it seems like his tour of revenge is kind of going down in terms of quality of smoothness, right? Like how smoothly these murders have been taking place.
He's not as good as Monza is. Let's just say that.
Monza is not any good at all. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Well, what I mean is Monza's overall like. Okay, you're right. No,
yeah, don't even.
Casca is way more stealthy about these assassinations. Casca is not ready to die. Monza's like, if I die, I die. But whatever. I don't have anything else to do, so I'm just gonna go for it. Whereas Casca is like, I don't want my position to be ruined. He was even worried about it. He was like, ooh. If he runs out, ooh, that won't look good.
That won't look good for me. Yeah, very true.
So, but I just love how much he sells it. It really is absolutely hilarious how much she's like, "Oh, my fault." It's so funny.
It is so fucking over the top, and I just love the whole sequence, the whole slapstick of him bashing him both the back of the head with a lamp, like mid conversation. It's just so fucking silly. Casca is a cartoon character. I think he's brilliant. I think I'm gonna give this one a 4 as well, though. Like you said, it's super short. They go in the tunnel, they come out and blow it up, and then it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love the fact that there's like a little revenge story inside the revenge story.
Revengeception. Harrison, what's the score you're gonna give it? You didn't give it a score yet.
I think I'm gonna give it a 4 and a knuckle. Like you guys are right. These are just average chapters. Like things are happening. But there's just they're just kind of going through the motions right now. Nothing of significance. No insanely like oh my god, look at that character moment. So entertaining, but pretty average. So.
Yeah. That makes sense. So let's move on to our next segment, which is our character spot. Of course, it's got to be who else, boys? But
Good old Cesaria.
we hardly knew ye.
Although I will say, go ahead, George.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say he obviously is maybe a little blind to his own faults, but at least he's like, man, we gotta do the right thing, you gotta do the right thing, right? Surely. I like that.
It seems like he's got some morals. He's got some principles.
The only one of the captains with morals in the fucking Thousand Swords. Although he didn't seem to have much morals when fucking Andish died. He goes, yes, his sacrifice was not in vain, for we got all this gold.
I mean, it's exactly that. We don't really get much detail about these characters, but yeah, like with the whole portrayals and everything, the portrayal of Costco and of Monza, we all know that they didn't really have a choice. They kind of just have to go with the flow. So you can't really blame them.
What?
Right.
But I love that Costco takes it so fucking personally. Like he knows that they didn't really have a choice. Like the choice is already made. Orso's decided this. Ben has been fucking causing shit, and this is what's caused that. They didn't really have a choice in the matter. But he takes it so fucking personally.
I think they had more choice in the matter, because remember, those three guys together, all three of them multiple times have been like, hey, you should take over. Like, they're all about it.
Well, I mean, Sazine died, because he got shot with an arrow. Then they elevated Casca. Then because Benna was also a captain, and so was Monza. Yeah. And that Orso came in, they were like, okay, the tide's turning against Casca anyway. He's becoming a drunk. He's all this stuff. Makes sense. I mean, by Orso decreeing that he wanted Monza to be the true captain general, I mean, I don't know necessarily how much choice Andish, Cesario, and Victus really had. I mean, yeah, they're treacherous scumbags, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the way the winds were blowing. And then, obviously, the whole thing with Monza and Benna, I mean, you could say what you want. Like, maybe Faithful Carpi was involved. I don't know how involved. But here's the thing. Yeah, they weren't involved. Remember when Shivers goes to see Faithful Carpi to bring him back? And they go, Monza's alive? Wait, you did this? Wait, what the fuck? When were you going to tell us?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, yeah, I don't think, I think Casca's just taking out his desire for revenge on the wrong person. Because at the end, it should have been Benna and Monza. And in this case, Monza. But he has a soft spot for Monza. So, anyway. So that's the end of our character spot. Cesaria, we hardly knew ye. You apparently were too innocent for this world, I guess.
Perhaps in another life, you could ponder the thoughts of fighting a man face to face while also being in a mercenary company.
Yeah.
Also, everyone will think that he's very brave for staying behind to put out the fire. So that's that's a positive note.
Sure.
Why is it always the best of them?
So we'll move on to our third and final chapter read through, which this is One Nation. And this is from the perspective of our girl, Manza Manscaro, right? She is basically, they're getting ready for the grand performance of tonight, which is the coronation of Rogan as king of Styria. So, basically, she's not feeling too happy about this, right? She's in a annoying ass dress, if I'm not mistaken. So they cut her neckline real low. I mean, basically, nothing should be able to spoil the perfection of Rogan's coronation, right? His crowning.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And like Rubine had suggested she didn't need to wear a sword in the chamber, but she pointed out that she wore one for every day.
I like how that little exchange happens, like in post, like how she's thinking about, like, like the way it's described as, well, he said this, so she said this, and then he said this, so she said he could just kill him. Like I like how
I do especially like that she asked him what she'd used to stab him with as she left her sword behind.
So, as Monza's making her way with the Countess Katarda, to the chamber, the Senate House, she's reflecting on the last 3 weeks of what she's had to do to kind of bring Talons back up to snuff, because she's the one that plunged it into this disarray. So, finding all these, trying to find every bureaucrat that wasn't besieged in Fontesarmo alongside Duke Orso. There have been discussions about the Talonese army, that there wasn't a Talonese army. Discussions about the treasury that was empty, taxation, public works, preservation, security, justice, all of that stuff. It was it actually was Rogan's presence, or the presence of his soldiers, that was keeping Talons from anarchy, right? But she's good at reckoning people's qualities. And picking the right person for a job. So Rubin was pompous as a prophet, so she made him high magistrate. Grullo and Scavier were the two most ruthless merchants, so she made them joint chancellors and set each one to come up with new taxes and to compete in their collection while keeping an eye on the other, right?
Yeah.
And so already they were getting money from the citizens and merchants and stuff like that, and Monzo's already spending it on military matters. 3 days into her rule, an old sergeant called Volfier had arrived in the city. Dude that's like really scarred, right?
Just before we move on, I'd like to point out that Monza's major inspiration for her political works is Baez.
Oh yeah, Bialoveld.
Because it's Bialefeld's Maxim. I think that's fun. I love that. I just love I love how Baez is everywhere. Like he influences so many people without meaning to. Yeah.
I mean, he's written works and shit, so yeah. He knows what it takes to rule a nation, an empire. And so that Volfier guy, he had entered the city. Apparently, he was a sergeant in the Talonese army, and he didn't surrender, so he led 23 survivors of his regiment back from Austria all the way across Styria with their arms and honor intact. So she could always use a man that bloody. So she set him up to rounding up every veteran in the city. So he already had 2 companies of volunteers, since paying work was there's not a lot of work going on since all the chaos. And their job was to make sure that the tax collectors were escorted and not a copper was missing. So, and
I think that's really, we don't get very often that we get Monza's actual traits that are talked about in to be shown, and that's a good showing here of what she's good at, and as a leader, is recognizing people's strengths and not just knowing where a good place to put them, but knowing a good place not to put them. And she's putting people in positions kind of what they wanted, but busy enough and you feeling useful enough for them not to bug her about shit. And it's a smart position, smart way to put people in their place.
Exactly. I love to see Monza being a competent actual states person here. I think it's really good. I kind of expected the first time I read this for Monza to just not give a shit about the actual public affairs and stuff like that. But it's nice it's actually refreshing, isn't it, to see that she is good at this stuff, even though the whole time Beda was the one that was doing this stuff.
Well,
for the Thousand Swords, at least.
I think Monza was, though.
Well, she was a leader, yeah, because Beda didn't do jack shit, did he?
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, but Beda was more of the people person.
Yeah, he was the people pleaser,
and that comes through here. She loves to threaten people, even if it's not completely serious.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so we see that she's very good at logistics. She's very good at organization, administration. And as they're walking, Countess Katarda is like, "You look very beautiful," and Monza's like, "Oh shit, right."
oh.
Yeah. And
oh my God, Cortana, you stop it! You're beautiful too.
Yeah, Countess is like, white suits you. They tell me I'm too pale for white. I wish I was like you. And the monster goes, yeah, just sunbathe. And then the Countess is like, no, I mean brave. I wish I was brave. They tell me I'm powerful. One would have thought being powerful would mean one not be scared of anything, but I'm afraid all the time. Sometimes I can't move for the weight of it. Sometimes I'm such a disappointment. What can I do about that? What would you do? And then Monza didn't say anything. She goes, I have no character at all, but where does one get character from? Either you have it or you don't. You have it. Everyone says you have it. Where did you get it? Why don't I have any?
Oh my God.
All this, Monza's like, just act like you're not a coward. I don't know. And then the doors open, and the musician's like, burn, 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 burn. I don't know why I did the Jurassic Park thing. Anyway, so
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh my God, that is the fanfare that plays in my head now whenever I think about this scene.
So there's thousands and thousands of people out and about of the outside of the Senate House, right? And it's the because Rogan wanted to make sure everyone that was anyone was there. We have Styrians, we have craftsmen, all up and down the
spectrum,
the line
of the wealth.
Yeah, there you go. So there were merchants from the Thousand Isles, heavy-bearded Northmen, bright-eyed Baelish, Soljic people, Westport people. The Union was absent, though, but the Gurkish delegation was there. A dozen ambassadors. And then there's like Larosio, Patine, these other dukes. Sartorius was there as well. And then, the 5 great leaders of Styria. And they would have the honor of crowning Rogant. Oh, boy. And they're all dressed in their, their city-states colors and sigils and everything. So, everyone's like ready to go. Glanza, is make sure that she only's wearing that one glove on her right hand because of her, how her right hand's all jacked up. She makes sure that's nice and tight. Let's hope the crown is large enough for the biggest head in Styria. That's what Sartorius says.
Oh shit!
And then some more fanfare comes, blares out, and then the doors at the back of the hall are opened, and Rogan, he steps smiling into the Senate House, and he acts surprised. He's like, all this for me? You shouldn't have. But we know goddamn well this man planned this down to the tiniest detail. And so, so then, Rogan comes, he starts walking. 4 men in Austrian sigils come out. They bring out this box, and then they set it aside on a, I don't know, like a platform of some sort. And then Rogan comes out to basically the head of the group, and he goes, my friends, the day is finally here. And then, Sartorius goes, yeah, it is. Larosio's like, happy day. And then Patine goes, long hoped for. And then Katarda goes, well done.
I love in the audiobook that it's genuinely like deadpan though. It's just like, what a day.
yeah, they're like whoop.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't care.
And then Rogan goes, my thanks to you all. And then he looks at,
and it was wait, one sec, Jeff. Sorry. To be fair though, I don't blame them because it's not like, we know that Rogan has manipulated things to be able to work out in this situation, and he's acting like he's come in and saved everyone. And they're all just looking at us like, we know what you did, you fucker.
Yeah. That and the fact too, like how he's handling himself in terms of not just that, but like the fact that he's also an asshole. Like if he was just like, yes, I saved you, but he's also, and everything he does, he's, as Mazda says here in just a moment, he's losing all sense of humor. She's not even sure he'd be a good king, more better than Orso, probably worse than Orso was. And it's just it's not looking good. And they're like, I can't believe we're doing this. This is so stupid. But they're all also tired of war and stuff. So I kind of,
this is definitely better than the alternative.
Yeah, the constant war, constant fighting, and it's kind of one of the situations where this obviously isn't going to last. But you gotta take your ones where you can get them, and right now they're winners, so they'll just roll with it. Give him what he wants.
Mm. Yeah. And so Rogan, he thanks everybody. He goes, "My thanks to you all." And then he looks at Monza and he goes, "No congratulations from you." And she goes, "Congratulations." And he goes, "Graceful as ever." And then he leans closer to her. He goes, "You did not come to me last night." And she goes, "Other commitments." He goes, Well, I suppose I had to say has many demands. Well, and he just waves her away. Like, oh, okay. Now, at that time, she'd have been more than willing to piss on him. So
you can see that though, like the arrogance of that, of just being like he just expects her to come to him every day.
Yeah. So
it's just like that's just such a slimy, vile fucking.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a nasty prick.
Yeah, he is. And so then the porters actually set down the case. Now I apologize. Behind the throne, they unlocked it and they opened the lid. Something about this case is kind of familiar to me. It's an inlaid case. I don't know where I've heard this before. I don't know. Anywho, so then now the 5 counts and countesses, dukes and dukes or whatever, duke duchesses. Excuse me.
Dukies, and dukies.
The duckess. Anyway, the ducks. Anyway, apparently, it's a crown, a giant crown, thick band of gold, set all around with a row of darkly gleaming sapphires, and 5 golden oak leaves sprout from it, and at the front, a larger 6 curled about a monstrous flashing diamond, big as a chicken's egg. So, and so we get the point now. So now, with the expression that every man is about to have to clean a toilet with their hand, Larosio, he grabs one of the golden leaves. Patine does the same with another one. Sartorius, Catarda, and so Monza takes the last one, with her right hand, and they all kind of like smile or scowl or like, "Oh my god, I can't believe we're doing this." So then they lift it up. And they took a few steps forward, and then they pause for a moment by the throne, and then they crown Orso, and the crowd cheers, Styria, one nation, under God. I'm kidding. And
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then Rogan rises slowly from the chair, and he spreads his arm out wide. And he goes,
"My children,
my fellow
no, he doesn't say that.
My fellow Styrians, humble subjects." He starts talking about it. "The years of blood are at an end." Oh, so now he starts doing like this pompous ass speech, right? He goes, "Now we basically Styria will march in whatever direction, in one direction, marching together." And it's as if Styria wakes from a nightmare, 19 years long. Some among us can remember a time without war. But now, the wars are all over and all of us are one. Every one of us. Now is the time for peace, for freedom, for healing. Larosio starts, he's like, ahem. Now is the time for hope, forgiveness, for unity. Catarda is like staring at her hand now. And Rogan goes, "Now is the time to forge a great state that will be the envy of the world. Now is the time," but Larosio starts to cough now. And Rogan's like, "Motherfucker, can you stop coughing?" And he goes, "Now is the time for Styria to become," but now Patine is bending forward and giving like an anguished groan. And Rogan's like, "What the fuck? One nation." And then, but something is wrong. Monza could see this, and everyone's beginning to see it. Catarda lurches backwards and stumbles. She catches the railing, and she's breathing hard. She sinks to the floor, and the audience is like, and then Rogan goes,
almost like they've been poisoned.
Rogan goes, "One nation." Sartorius sinks to his knees, clutching at his throat. Patine is crouched on all fours now. His veins are bulging from his neck. Larosio just fell to the side, with his back to Monza, and he's breathing like at a faint wheeze. Catarda her leg is kicking faintly, then she's still. And then everyone's just, still, like the audience. Patine sags onto his face. Sartorius falls backwards, his spine arched, and then flopped down limp.
I like that. I like the idea that he's like.
Yeah. Rogan stares at Monza. She stares back, frozen as helpless. He opens his mouth. one hand towards her, but no breath moved. His forehead, beneath the fur-trimmed rim of the crown, had turned angry red. The crown. They had all touched the crown.
Dun, dun, dun!
Her eyes had rolled down to her gloved right hand, except for her. Rogan's face twisted. He took one step. His ankle buckled, and he pitched onto his face. The crown pops from his skull, clatters along the floor, and somebody gives a single scream. And then, funny enough, a counterweight goes off, and 1,000 songbirds, white songbirds, were released. A beautiful sight, just as how Rogan had planned, except that of the 6 men and women destined to unite Styria and bring an end to the years of blood, only Monza was still alive. Dun, dun, dun. End of the chapter. They've been poisoned, folks.
Who could have done this?
I love that Morveer was like successful. Like I love the tug and pull of being like, oh my god, look at him failing. Look, he's nothing that day. Like he sucked. And then he got a little lucky and he did the right thing and he made the right call and it was successful.
Now look at him.
And it's completely changed the game. Like this is we thought that we knew how this was gonna go. We do not know anymore. Everyone is dead. All the leaders of Styria are dead except for Monza.
Yep. And so now it's just Monza left, and like it was a spectacular near fulfillment of Morveer's, contract, right? He basically got everybody except Monza, which obviously plot armor because she had to wear the gloved right hand, which I'm like, all right, really? I mean,
well, no, I like that set up that way because it's ironic, right? Like the whole reason that she's hiding away the glove and
it's because of Orso in the first place.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Right. Yeah. I'm just like, so she didn't touch the hand at all, like with her left hand, she didn't touch this at all.
If she's got both hands gloved to match. Well, it would be weird if she had one hand gloved in this kind of attire.
No, I thought it was just her one hand was gloved. I'm pretty sure.
Normally, yes, but in this case, she's wearing a dress and she's got.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Then I think I must have missed that, but okay, that makes sense. Then that makes sense.
I don't think. Go ahead, George.
I love the implication as well that it's kind of like everyone thinks that Monza did it because she's just like stood there. Everyone else is dead. She's just like, That
and the fact that like
this crowd, like
Rogan like looks at her and like reaches out like, oh. Do you think he was like my love? Oh.
I bet you she's looking around like that John Travolta meme from Pulp Fiction, just like.
Yeah, exactly.
Harrison, you brought up the point that like, okay, because she's wearing a dress, she's wearing like matching gloves and everything. Wouldn't the Countess have worn gloves then?
No, because the only reason they put gloves on her was because of her hand.
Right. So she's.
But it wouldn't make any sense for her to wear that. To be clear, they didn't directly say that, Jeff. But it makes zero sense for them to put her in this uniform, white gown with black cross and all this shit, and then have just one hand glove on. Well, they put the glove on to conceal the messed up finger, and then you put the other glove on to match.
You're right. They gave her gloves, not glove.
So, they do say plural. Okay.
They say plural gloves. They say because normally Monza does just wear one glove. She normally does.
Yeah. Normally, you're right. Yes, she does normally wear one glove.
Okay. So that's interesting. All right, so now with the end of that chapter, and Harrison with that, discussion about her gloves and everything, how would you rate that chapter, boys?
I mean, it's a pretty significant chapter, right? This definitely changes everything. I mean, Morveer got the impact he wanted, and I really love how so many times like Joe doesn't give that satisfaction of a character getting what they want, and whenever he does, it's always the character you don't want to succeed. So it's very in character for Joe to do this, and I think it works pretty well. And I think it's written well. I forgot to mention earlier. I like the Senate House like setting because it's just like the old Empire. Like the architecture's all the same and everything. I like to think this dome and amphitheater is smaller than the one in Alcus, and I like the setting, and I like how everybody is upset with Rogan for being such a dickwad. So I think I'm gonna rate this one. I think I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 9 because I enjoy it quite a bit. I think it's done really well, and it's pretty big. It's a big thing happens here.
I'm gonna go with a 7 as well. I really, really enjoy it. It's huge. It's not, well, twist is a bit of a stretch, but it's definitely a huge like change to the status quo. We would have expected, we're dealing with Rogon for all time, and Monster's going to be beholden to him. But now it's just like, oh no, they're all dead, and now Monster's probably the most powerful person in Styria, and it's all an accident. I just think that's so funny. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm gonna, because of the duration, because it's short. Again, I'm still impactful though. I'm gonna go a slight touch. I'm gonna go six and a knuckle. Again, because of the duration, but it's very impactful, right? Especially when it recontextualizes Morveer's chapter previously, right? Where it was so short and nothing. Now we know he poisoned the crown, and now we know that this must have been the day of or the night before when he did that. It had to have been the night before, if I'm not mistaken, because if I remember correctly, all the people, they can't have been long that they just left that crown untouched. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was in the morning, right? They brought the crown in, got everything set up in the morning, made sure all the decorations are right, and then this happened like maybe not middle of the day, but evening time. Well, the sun is above, right? You can see the sun coming in, so like I would say afternoon. Yeah.
So maybe
that's what I think. At least.
Morning, whatever, and. This is the case where it's like Morveer is rightly acclaimed as like a master of poisons, as in terms of like creating poisons and stuff like that. And then he has poisoned a bunch of people, but we've noticed that from his retelling, his own honest retelling in his mind's eye and everything, and then what we see here is that as good as he is poisoning, like, even when we saw Malthus and everything, there are a lot of times where he just bumbles his way into killing his target, which is hilarious. But then obviously all the important people, the dukes and duchesses, are dead. And Rogan was king for all about 2 minutes before he fucking died. And now, like you said, it's just Monza and Orso left, right? So now, in terms of like important people, now I know Orso doesn't really have an army anymore, but he still has, he has men and in the fortress of Fontesarmo, and now there's nobody else but Monza. Like, who are the Osprian
and ties to the Union as well? That's so important,
right? So now, if the Union were to send soldiers at this point, Monza could be fucked. Anyway,
I think you're totally right.
Yeah. So, I'll give it a 6 and a knuckle. I would give it a higher score if there were more pages. Literally, don't think I really do enjoy this chapter. I'm just giving it a bit of it's a lower score than I would have just because of the duration, the amount of pages. But
Fair enough.
George, you're all right. You look like you're confused.
Nah,
you're just like, why would he give it a 6 and a knuckle?
How dare you disagree, Jeff?
It's the you're like, I would give it higher if there were more pages.
Yeah, I need more papers. I need more dead trees before I give any chapter a goddamn high score. Anyway, so normally that'd be the end of the episode, and it is going to be a shorter one, but we're going to give you an extra character spot segment because of what just happened. Boys, we must shine a spotlight on these poor, unfortunate souls.
Rogan, we loved you dearly. The true king of Styria.
Rogan, Sartorius, Patine, Larosio, and Catarda, right?
Yeah, everybody in Styria basically was like, this is the best we got. And then like he got there, they're like, fuck, we might have made a mistake. And then he died. Everyone's like,
this is a bad idea.
They all died. Everyone's like, oh no, hang on. maybe this isn't that bad.
I mean, like I said earlier, just the fact that the whole crowd didn't immediately burst into violence kind of suggests that they're not that upset about it,
Well,
they're just like,
they're shocked.
Shit.
I like how they didn't all freak out either. Like, I mean, like there was that, the one that was the ear-splitting shriek. But I think it's really funny how all these people, these individuals, like most of them we don't know them. Like we got Cortada being all insecure because she just took the position. So I do feel kind of bad for her because she's just kind of like, going with it. Everybody else is kind of like intentionally there. They have some kind of other ordeal, so I do feel bad for her. Sartorius, man, I wish he ruled for another 40 years.
Sartorius did seem like a genuinely like good fella. I know he's like
he seemed like a good
supposed to be
head on his
corrupt
shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. But he seems sensible. I mean, he managed to keep Sapani neutral.
Yeah, for real, and he was serious about
the entire Civil War for years of these fractured kind of like
20 years
states fighting each other. Yeah, exactly. And he's just like, yeah, fuck it. We're staying neutral. No fighting here, boys.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, Sartorius, you really gotta pour one out for our boy Sartorius. You know.
Yeah. I think Cortada is a bit of a tragic character as well, because she's obviously so not prepared for this. She's just like been propped up. But is she the one with the uncle that's probably a bit of incesty going on there as well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like she doesn't really deserve this death, and that's kind of sad. But fuck the rest of them.
And it's fucked because it seems like she was self-aware, so she could have probably grown into being a good countess or
Yeah.
You know? So,
and I like how they give us that moment just before she gets killed. Like Monza could have inspired her to be like a better, and she could have been like an ally all the way up until that point where Morveer killed them all.
Yeah, and then Monza's best advice was just don't act like a coward. I don't know what to tell you. Way to go, Monza.
Make it till you make it, baby.
Best I can do is don't be a bitch.
Yeah. But I bet you if Benna was to fucking ask her this kind of question, she'd be like, Benna, don't worry about it. Benna, I'm here for you.
Yeah. We're in this together forever, Benna.
Benna. Oh, folks. Well, that's the end of that. So thank you. We appreciate your continued loyalty and your devotion to our podcast. Well, that's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
Join us next week as we cover All Dust and The Inevitable.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media, and we have a website, circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
The day is finally here.